It helps.
It helps these people in food deserts.
How strong these big corporations are because it's important to help the little guy.
Well, I mean, they reach 93% of America's population. That's some pretty powerful shit there.
Yeah.
That's infrastructure.
And that's because we allow them to grow and to hoard capital.
No, it's because the people demand things and they supply it for them. We do Duolingo.
Yeah, we do. We do that.
I do Spanish. El gato es en mi pantalones.
A cat?
A cat is in my pants.
It sounds like you're saying you got like a feisty penis or something.
Well, the cat is actually synonym for a different kind of genitalia, but that works because that is what's down there, a feisty penis.
A tiger. Can you add in the thing from the last episode? The squirrel?
What? Oh, yeah. We can just start playing that whenever you're...
Estoy is conjugated for
oh, true. It's temporary. Yeah, it's temporary. Yeah. I said S, which would be permanent. So maybe we are
conjugated.
Right.
I know more Spanish than Peter does.
That's definitely true. Anyway.
I'm learning Italian. Just like any other language, they have you speak. The languages that you emulate have the accent of, or like at least an average of different accents at the language.
Could you maybe give us a phrase?
No.
In Italian? Do some Italian X representation for us.
I am Italian, but like I don't speak it well. I don't have a good accent.
Well, if you do it, it's going to make the story easier, though.
Okay, like if I were to say, fai come dico, non come faccio.
That's good.
That's like do as I say, not as I do. And it has that cadence.
It has the cadence. It has the accent. But if I were to say, shit in my pants, then I'm actually just speaking in English, claiming to have shat myself. Which is what I was doing a lot of. Not shitting my pants, but saying that. I kind of just sounded like I said I was shitting my pants a whole lot, but that's not it. ACD was continuing to do Duolingo.
It was also whenever I was trying to fucking hear something, because you know how they have different, they have things where you have to say it, they have things where you have to type it out in Italian or type it out. And then there are other ones where you have to listen in Italian, which is the hardest for me. And probably the hardest for anybody learning a new language, because the way that we hear phonemes in other languages, unless we're younger than 1 year old, we don't know those phonemes, and we don't know how to separate. Well, even if you're under 1 year old, you don't know how to separate the phonemes in your mind as they are in words. So it just sounds like a jumbled up series of phonemes rather than chunked into words. And so that's unless you speak the language. So it's really hard to do that when you're learning a new language.
And then when it's speaking, you have a second person going, shit in my pants.
Like 40 times.
Oh, it was more than 40. It was definitely more than that.
We were going over 40 times for a 5-minute lesson.
Well, I was just helping you learn. Like, I could go to Italy and no one would know that I came from the United States. I would go into a pizza place and I'd stand in line to get my order, and they'd say, whatever the fuck, what's your order? However you say that in Italian. And I would go, shit in my pants. And they would say, that person who's clearly lived here their entire life came in here and shit themselves.
That non-binary Italian ex-local
who I can't remember seeing around, but I know by the way that they speak are a lifetime resident of our fine country, Italy. They shit their pants.
But the thing about it too is that it got like increasingly insane in like timbre and cadence with the getting increasingly higher.
It did. Shit in my pants. Shit in my pants. Anyway, I speak Italian much better than ACD does. Tighten your buttholes. It's time for Pact.
Tighten your shit tussie.
Oh, no.
Shit tussie.
This is Miss Astronaut Cowboy Doctor, ACD. I'm the P, Peter Coffin. If you put those together, it says this, PACD, which is a word. It sounds like this, Pact.
You're such a bitch about that.
If you could tell your friends about our little podcast, join our Discord or become a patron, that'd be great. We also stream every Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, let's go.
So we were directed to this article by a lovely patron and Discord member, Quender, and it appeared to be an important example of the media making the big corporations look like the good guys, but nothing like too like crazy.
Insane.
You're like, oh yeah, this happens every day. But here's a good example of this. But it actually reflects as a microcosm a pretty accurate picture of the emergence between bank capital and industrial capital, how those work together to maintain capital relations and their justifying ideologies. So the article is titled, Uber Eats, Instacart, and other food delivery services help low-income families access fresh groceries and healthy food.
Aren't those companies great for helping these poor, low-income families in food deserts? Just really giving it their all, really caring, really being the change they wish to see.
I love that for them.
Me too.
Amazon Fresh, DoorDash, Instacart, and other food delivery services have been helping millions of people living in food deserts. Communities where access to fresh food is scarce and hard to come by gain better access to fresh groceries and healthy food options, according to a report. A Brookings Metro data analysis report of 4 of the most prominent food delivery services in the country shows that the services reach 93% of America's population, including 90% of the population living in traditionally defined food deserts. Food deserts are typically located in low-income metropolitan neighborhoods with high rates of unemployment, according to the Annie E. Casey Foundation. Thank you, Annie E. Casey Foundation, by the way, for explaining to us that places with limited access to healthy food, Annie E. Casey Foundation graciously indicating to us,
right,
much like our hero, Frances Haugen.
Yes, pointing out things that we cannot see.
Yes.
Frances Haugen saving us from companies wanting to profit.
Rather than
would not have known.
Health.
Would not have known.
But the Annie E. Casey Foundation showing us that places with limited food access are mostly in low-income areas.
And are referred to as food deserts. Brookings Metro, also a liberal think tank, informed policy in the Bill Clinton administration. My thing that I first noticed about this, Amazon Fresh, DoorDash, Instacart, and other food delivery services.
Walmart.
Yeah, it excludes Walmart. An industry leader in food delivery services. Like, in terms of grocery delivery, they have a vast infrastructure. They're not fucking around. And I promise you that in terms of this report, they cover all of that ground and more. I think it's important to bring up Walmart, though, because of how instrumental Walmart's infrastructure was.
Absolutely.
In hollowing out.
And it's intentional that they are leaving that out.
Oh, it's absolutely intentional. Because if they didn't leave that out, then people would go, well, why do you think they're food deserts?
Yeah.
Walmart came into the fucking town and now there's no grocery store. Because
libs even know that.
When I was little, when there was a paper mill in Waterville, Michigan, during that era of my life, in downtown Waterville, there was a small grocery store, a real grocery store with fruit, with fresh meat, local produce. It was a real grocery store where you could get all of your groceries at, and it could not compete with Walmart. Walmart came in and these little grocery stores in these little towns disappeared. There is now a Dollar Tree in that location, might I add.
Ooh, yeah.
Which you can get food at, which will get you fat and probably sick if you eat that exclusively.
And those are the kinds of places that occupy food deserts.
Yeah, that's a food desert.
Right.
That is what they mean. When you say other food delivery services, convenient to leave that off. That's probably one of the biggest ones, and also probably one of the most responsible for creating the situation in which these kinds of companies can even exist in these areas. Because I promise you, DoorDash is not the most efficient way to get groceries in a small town where there is an actual grocery store.
Yeah. And even if Walmart was not, technically included in food, like Amazon Fresh, DoorDash, and Instacart are large enough companies to be like,
oh, absolutely.
What the fuck? How are we not seeing this as, this thing for which we are totally responsible? We are doing so much to benefit your community in fixing this, again, problem that we did. And so those large corporations, Walmart being a perfect example, are going into those towns and displacing those local markets.
And now a quick message from our sponsor. You. Hey, did you know that we don't take money from any organizations at all? We take $0 from the state, from capital, and from state or capital affiliated NGOs or NPOs. Pact and my other project, Very Important Documentaries, specifically rely on small dollar support from viewers like you. Patrons of any of these projects get access to anything we're able to give away early, all of my books for free as ebooks in several different formats, and various other perks like we do movie nights. The next one is going to probably be Kung Pao Enter the Fist, which is a very silly movie. And we look forward to seeing everybody together for that. We're just going to watch it all together on the Discord in the members-only area. Without money, it's really hard to find ways to expand the podcast, especially since it seems like no platform is particularly friendly towards a hardline Marxist-Leninist message. So if you're a longtime viewer and think, wow, I would really like it if more people saw this, and I'd like to see them put some money towards that, or you're a new viewer and you've found a podcast that you like, and you like that people aren't pushing Squarespace or the State Department on you, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/pactpod. That's PACDPOD. It doesn't even have to be a lot. If you can give us $1-2, that's amazing, and it helps. Thanks so much, and let's get back to Pact.
Well, I mean, Amazon is a perfect example of a company on the same level with the same kind of infrastructure, except for they don't even have physical stores.
Right.
And they do the same thing. They've hollowed out these areas in the exact same way.
Absolutely.
And now they're delivering food, taking up that market, again, in the same way Walmart did.
Yep. And Amazon and DoorDash and Instacart are other like not invisible, but they don't have that physical infrastructure that are doing the exact same thing in terms of it's like these corporations gentrified local grocery.
That's exactly what
shopping.
it is.
But without providing any of that context, this very local news outlet.
Yes. It's an article from masslive.com, the Massachusetts Live website.
Yes. So this very local news site is just showing us the wonderful, expansively helpful nature that large corporations have because of all their infrastructure and the robustness of their hold in the industry. How much leverage they have and how much power they have, so much so that it helps.
It helps these people in food deserts.
How strong these big corporations are because it's important to help the little guy.
Well, I mean, they reach 93% of America's population. That's some pretty powerful shit there.
Yeah.
That's infrastructure.
And that's because we allow them to grow and to hoard capital.
No, it's because the people demand things and they supply it for them. They know that there's a market in these food deserts, right? There's nothing that happened to cause these food deserts. That's not like their business plans created this situation or anything. There's no history. History didn't happen, friends. People want food. They want groceries. And these services popped up and said, you know what? Where there's a demand, we can supply.
Yeah, nothing to do exactly with all their land, all their infrastructure, and their money, and their influence in local governments, and their influence in national governments.
No, none of that.
To be able to provide those services to fulfill that gap that they totally did not create.
No, that had nothing to do with it.
And gentrifying grocery shopping.
No. So this is what monopoly capitalism does.
Exactly.
You have businesses in your little town that serve a purpose, and that purpose is absorbed by a company that can do all of it better. Whether you like it or not, whether they give you a good product or not,
they
that's
do it
not
more efficiently.
It doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about when we say better. What we're saying is that in terms of a capitalist economy, they do the thing better.
More efficiently.
Cheaper.
More profit.
Yeah. They do it cheaper. They do it more efficiently, and they make more money off of it. Why? Because they have the concentration of capital to set up the apparatus to do that.
Exactly.
And it works that way with the media too.
And the media serves that. This is the superstructure maintaining the base.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you remember maybe about 20 years ago, the state of local media, there used to be a thriving newspaper in my area called the Herald Palladium. It was a daily newspaper. These local news outlets, both newspapers, TV stations, radio stations, they could make money. They could pay people to do reporting and journalism. They had the budget to bring people in to do labor, just like local grocery stores did. They had the budget to bring in local produce and bring in meat and bring in your favorite breakfast cereals and the best muffins that money can buy. There's a parallel here. And if we look at this parallel, we can see that this isn't just propaganda for food delivery services delivering in food deserts. It's propaganda for the whole thing.
Wow, we timed that one.
So those local media outlets, if you happen to remember them, aren't there now, are they? They're not. If you're in a slightly larger metropolitan area, there's probably some of them that are still around, but they're owned by bigger companies now. They've been bought up. Who bought them up? Well, who owns masslive.com? That's really the question, isn't it? This is the source of news. Like masslive.com put out this news article, right?
Tristan Smith at masslive.com.
Tristan Smith put out this great little article about food deserts and the services that make it so that they can eat healthy again.
Lovely.
He sent it out to all the people of Massachusetts. You hear about all the food deserts? They got food now, thanks to Amazon. All the people in Massachusetts that live in food deserts now know the thing that they need. It's Uber Eats. It's Amazon. It's the unspoken one. Walmart. Where do they go for their local media? Masslive.com. Masslive.com. Masslive.com is, of course, not just its own independent outlet, putting out news for all the Massachusetts. Anyway, somebody figured out how to do local news. Finally, there was a demand, wasn't there? There was some kind of like need, and the market, it figured out how to supply it, how to supply what people were demanding, right?
Wrong.
There's nothing led up to that. Any local media from the past, that's just the past, man. Forget all that stuff from the past. That was the past, man. We don't live in the past. We live in the now. Gotta live in the present, man. What are you doing? Nostalgia? Isn't that bad? Meanwhile, absolutely everything in the United States is run on nostalgia, but never mind. So one might be able to say that all of these local areas without news are kind of news deserts. And who created that situation? Who was it? Was it bigger companies? Maybe. So, Mass Live is actually owned by a company called Advanced Local, which is a division of Advanced Publications. It was founded in 1922 by the Newhouse family, who owns it to this very day. They bring in $2.4 billion of revenue on a yearly basis. They own the following, but not limited to the following entities: GQ, Wired, The New Yorker, Vogue, Teen Vogue, Them. They also own Vanity Fair, Charter TV, which is the third largest pay TV provider behind Comcast and AT&T. They own that. They own the Discovery Channel, which it's not just a TV channel. That also includes their publication, their website, and a large number of like books and merchandise labeled Discovery. They also own the World Triathlon Corporation. So like if you've ever run one of the World Triathlon Corporation's races, you ran something under these people's control. Fucking zombie.
You puppet with Advanced Publications, hand up your ass.
I can see the strings. You're a marionette, man.
With Advanced Publications, hand up your shitosi.
Anyway, what's going on here is that the Telecommunications Act of 1996 did change a few laws and allowed some people to consolidate and buy more things. The law was changed because they were lobbying, because that was where they wanted to go. And they were already going that way around that time. They had been actually since like the 70s. Funny thing about Mass Live, it is not the only website like that. There's probably a Live for your state. There's a Live for my state. It's called amzn.to. And it has a template remarkably similar to Mass Live. And if you go to the bottom, you see the same thing, owned by Advanced Local. Same shit, different state. Our small town outlets are all gone. We live in a lot of news deserts. And just to be clear, the larger outlets, the newspapers that exist in Kalamazoo and Ann Arbor and Detroit, they're also owned by Advanced Local. They've been bought over the last several decades. For instance, the Ann Arbor News was a newspaper in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where both my parents met. My mom was in college. My dad was working in a grocery store. Ties right back into the topic, doesn't it? The Ann Arbor News was bought by a company in the 1980s, which in the 1990s was bought by Advanced Publications, the same company that owns MLive and all of these lives. The Ann Arbor News stopped printing a physical paper and went online and became part of the MLive network. Now, what happened? These large companies have the resources to do this stuff cheaper, more efficient, and more profitable than any local people do. They have more connections. They have more infrastructure. They can set up more infrastructure. It's the same situation as Walmart in the food deserts. Same fucking thing, except with the media. Mm-hmm. I worked in radio in Michigan, and one of the primary sources we got for news was MLive. And not because we were owned by MLive, but because it is the primary source in Michigan.
Right. It is the news apparatus.
Yeah. So even if you're not owned by them, you are still pushing out their fucking message one way or another. If you happen to have a radio station, a TV station, or a periodical or a website that is somehow able to handle existing in that ecosystem, you're still probably getting your content from MLive. And I imagine the situation is similar with Mass Live.
And several other states.
Probably quite a few other states, because I imagine this is a profitable business model. If they're able to just hollow out a news ecosystem in a state and like own it, I can't imagine they're just stopping with Massachusetts and Michigan.
And Michigan for some reason.
We wanted to hit the M's. Like, we're going to get Missouri next year.
I wanted to hit the M's.
Just the M's. They have totally irrational ideas. No, that's actually the opposite of that. They are ruthless.
Yes.
And they bend the environment to their will.
Yes, because they can. Somebody said something like capitalism leads to oligopoly and sometimes monopoly. It always leads to monopoly. We are in imperialism. That's the highest stage of capitalism. We're in monopoly capitalism merged with bank capital, which results in the control of finance capital underpinning industrial and bank capital and the decisions that they make. And to sustain those connections, you need a superstructural media force that perpetuates the neoliberal ideology that the market is successful in
the very simple supply and demand ideology that they blast out to everybody starting in elementary school.
Yes. Meaning they fulfill the needs of people living in this society well. This is a great example of the emergence of those things that characterize imperialism. And then especially, as Lenin defined it, but now uniquely in the 21st century with the mass media role, reinforcing the ideologies that underpin the connections between industrial capital, their connection to bank capital, and their financial underpinning of control.
Mm-hmm. But here's the funny thing about those things. What Amazon Fresh, Walmart, DoorDash, Instacart, you could very easily characterize what they're taking advantage of as decay.
Yeah.
Assuming that a revolution doesn't happen and communism doesn't spring forth from it. Imperial stage capitalism, because it creates the conditions of production ready to move to the next stage of an economy. Mm-hmm. Production is socialized, like at a very high level.
And that is why, well, a critical reason why these large companies are able to more efficiently displace and gentrify local modes of grocery shopping and media dissemination, because their production is socialized such that it's efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a quick break from the main program to acknowledge how important PACT thinks mental health is. Very important, but not important enough to hawk a mental health app for money on our program. In fact, this podcast, no matter how much information we can pack into it, ultimately probably shouldn't be involved in your personal mental health decisions. No, instead, for money, what we do is sell t-shirts. So these are our two most popular ones, 3 arrows but acceptable, which is the 3 arrows except for instead of having them all pointing down, because monarchism and fascism are the actual problems that you should be going after and not communism. And that whole thing is an anti-communist meme. Yeah, we made the bottom arrow, which is supposed to be bad for communism. We made it going the other way so that it's good for communism. The other one is the Comfy King, which is ACD in a comfy looking badass, like really badass. Our t-shirts are probably one of the least significant things you could own in your life. In fact, it doesn't actually enhance your life in any way, shape, or form. They're just fun and they help us. So go to merch.pactpod.com and remember, it's specifically to help us. Thanks so much, and let's get back to PACT.
The problem is that the profit is retained by a few people, the people who own these apparatus, these means of production. Mm-hmm. That's a summary of the core of the problem. So what we're getting in this article from Mass Live is a sort of dual layer propaganda.
There it is.
It is a propaganda in the obvious way. It is marketing these companies as good, not as the people who destroyed your town, but actually the people who are saving it. That is the obvious kind of propaganda that this is. But there is also a mechanical kind of propaganda going on. It's not so much that you're living in a food desert or a news desert or whatever, and these specific companies that hollowed you out aren't actually the bad guys, they're the good guys. It's actually just industry in general. You live in a blank desert. You don't have X huge company in your area, and you need them. because you don't have X small company in your area.
Mm-hmm. With the context and implication that because of these large companies, that is why you don't have that small company.
But you're not supposed to think about that.
Yeah.
The propaganda is telling you these huge masses of capital aren't actually your undoing. They are your savior at a mechanical, categorical level. It's not just food. It's not just media. Anytime you see one of these large companies, you're supposed to see them as your helper, your savior, a large apparatus built to assist you, the consumer, the most important person in capitalism whose decisions make all of the things in the world happen.
Because demand controls supply.
Mm-hmm. As Karl Marx noted in the 1840s, that's of course untrue. It ceased to be true as soon as large-scale production began, because the anarchy of production makes it so that it is unable to sustain supply and demand type production at a high level, because you have to produce at scale. You have to produce a number of things. You can't wind up a company to produce 4 or 5 of something. It has to be hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. And so you have to create apparatus that mitigates supply and demand. You have to literally work to undermine that dynamic in order to be a large scale company. And also keep in mind, what Karl Marx calls a large scale company is, in your words, cute compared to what a company is now.
Yeah, adorable. Child's play.
Exactly. It's child's play. So you have to market demand into existence after you have a product. And that goes for everything. That doesn't just go for your little food delivery service. That doesn't go for your media. If you're producing at scale, you need to market the demand into existence because you already have a supply. You've already made the decision to produce, or even already produced the supply of whatever thing it is. These services, they cooked up a long ass time ago. They've been trying to get into the situation where people were alienated in the right way, where they were not only alienated in their labor, they're not only alienated socially, they're alienated in terms of their access to the products that are necessary for their lives. They're an alienated consumer on top of being an alienated laborer.
That's good shit.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And they've been working to create that because they didn't just come up with these ideas. Like, they call them market disruptors, but the reason why the market is disrupted is because it's ripe for it.
The bust and boom.
Yeah, the bust and boom, because they control this on such a level. When something goes in a way that they don't expect, it creates a fucking crisis. That's the anarchy of production making its reappearance from time to time when you see that.
Yeah, my final thoughts, I think I've summarized them, is this is a perfect example of how the media superstructurally operates to justify the existence of monopoly capitalism.
It sounds conspiratorial. It sounds insane even sometimes to see an article that is ostensibly just an advertisement for some food services and think this is propaganda for the mode of society we exist in, for the way that they essentially control us, the way that they coerce us. It's telling us that it's actually because of us, but it's not. It's because of them. Don't believe it. Be critical. Think. And fuck them. Like, fuck them. Like, that's all for today. Thanks again for watching. This is Pact. I'm Peter. This is Miss Astronaut Cowboy Doctor. To help us out, click like, follow, subscribe, whatever. Leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Audible. To support us, become a patron at patreon.com/PeterCoffin. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later.